Welcome to the Selling from the Heart podcast on the From the Heart Business Network. You've joined a global movement of sales professionals who are dedicated to being authentic and building trust. We call it Selling from the Heart. Together, we're on a mission to bring sincerity and substance to the sales profession we all love. Get ready to be inspired and equipped as we join our hosts, Larry Levine and Darrell Amy.
Hiring salespeople based on a resume or a great interview is like drafting players based on their Instagram highlights. They look amazing in the clips. That's until the real game starts.
Exactly. Every CEO's been there. The interviews go great. You think you're bringing a top performer onto your team, but once they hit the field, they can't close, won't prospect, and blame the leads.
That's exactly why we recommend Sales Index Unlimited Candidate Assessments. It's your sales recruiting engine that screens every candidate against 21 proven sales competencies, benchmarked against 2.5 million sales professionals worldwide. That is more than a personality profile. You'll know with confidence who can sell and who will actually do the work.
Because the best teams don't just fill positions, they build a bench. They're always scouting for great players who can perform under pressure.
For just $2.99 a month, you can build your own bench of ready-to-sell talent, coachable, driven, and proven before they ever get the jersey.
So stop guessing, start scouting like a pro.
Go to unlimited.salesindex.ai. That's unlimited.salesindex.ai and start building your next sales all-star team today. Hello and welcome back to the Selling from the Heart podcast. Your co-host, Darrell Amy, here today with Larry Levine. What's going on, Larry?
Hey, what isn't? Great seeing you. We're in for a treat. You know what? The highlight of any given week, Darrell, is when we sit here and we podcast with really phenomenal guests like we have today, Darrell.
Yeah, if you're ready to dream, to think, and to do, you're going to enjoy meeting our friend Mitch Matthews today. Hey, thank you for joining us. If you're new to the podcast, you've joined a growing community of sales professionals that are dedicated to being genuine, being authentic, building trust, all the attributes of what it means to sell from the heart. And we enjoy connecting with our listeners all over the world every week.
You know, absolutely. I'm going to go to the province of Ontario, Canada for this one, Darrell Amy. Chris Balazzaro, we appreciate you. Darrell, you know who Chris is. Great VP of sales. We appreciate you.
Man, Chris, you lead with heart and you're a fellow Canadian. I absolutely love it. Well, hey, today's guest is someone who helps high achievers reconnect with why they do what we do and then turn that clarity into action. Mitch Matthews is a success coach, a keynote speaker, and the creator of the Top 1% podcast called Dream, Think, and Do. Through his podcast and coaching, Mitch helps leaders and entrepreneurs dream bigger, think better, and do more of the work they were put on this planet to do. He's interviewed some of the most influential thinkers and performers in the world from best-selling authors like Brendon Burchard, Michael Hyatt, and Jamie Kern, to Oscar winners, elite athletes, and world-class entrepreneurs. For sales professionals and leaders, Mitch's message is especially powerful. When you're aligned with your purpose, you show up differently. You build trust faster. You communicate more clearly. You create momentum that feels authentic and not forced. And he's here with us in the studio today. Mitch, welcome to Selling from the Heart. It's great to have you here.
I am honored, my friends. You guys are doing great work. This is going to be fun.
Oh, we're going to have a blast. And Mitch, you know the question that every guest on the Selling from the Heart answers, and that is, what does it mean to you to sell from the heart?
I love this question, and it like made me pause going, all right, let's, because I do believe in selling from the heart. I do believe that, taking care of our best people in the best way possible. But I was like, all right, if you boil down what I truly believe about selling from the heart, my thing was that what we try to focus on is selling to the right people, the right solutions at the right time. And what's beautiful about that is you have to know those people, right? Like you have to get to know them. You have to get to know what they truly need, then to craft the right solutions. And if those aren't yours, if you don't have the right solutions, the services, the products, whatever it is, then it's helping those people to find the right ones at the right time, and just knowing your part in that process. And I'll tell you that approach has served me well. Pretty much all the days of my selling career. I love to do it, and it's always interesting to me. I'll sometimes point people to a different service or product, and they'll be shocked, right? And they'll say, "Why would you do that?" And it's like, well, you know what? Whenever I get the right people to the right product, to the right solution at the right time, if that's mine, great. If it's not, what it does is it builds an army of advocates and an army of fans, and many of those are people that have bought things from me, but oftentimes those are people that didn't, but trust me even more because I sent them to the right solution. So I always say, right people, right solutions, right time, and you'll never run out of great people to work with.
Oh, this is so good. And I think, an underlying thing in here, and I love what you were just saying about this. I think selling from the heart sometimes is learning how to say no.
Yep.
Just simply learning how to say, no, this isn't the right fit, Mitch Matthews.
Yep. That's exactly right. And I don't know if you saw it, but Harvard recently did some research into what causes loyalty from customers. And, you would think maybe a sexy brand or a really great title or phrase or customer service. But they said the number one thing that drives loyalty to a brand is actually a brand that will say, this is who we serve and this is who we don't serve. And, it's just really interesting because, sometimes you would think, oh my gosh, saying no to someone, wouldn't that turn them off? And sure, it might turn off the right people, but the right people, you turn off the wrong people, but the right people, when you can, it's like, it's said that when you can describe someone's problem better than they can, they automatically assume you have their solution. So if you know that person to the point where you can tell their story and they're like, oh my gosh, you just described me, then to be able to say, hey, I got something for you. Let's talk. And so I really do believe in, we talk about it, I coach and I speak, but we also help people become coaches and speakers. And one of the things we talk about is an FCC model, which filter, to coach, and then to commit. Like, I love to sell with filter, coach, and commit. And filtering is basically creating a brand and or putting out value in a way so that people know you, like you, and trust you, right? So I always say a good brand, what's beautiful is it tends to attract the right people and repel the wrong people. Like, my podcast is called Dream, Think, Do. It's a grumpy people repellent.
That's good.
I love it.
Successful people. And I can tell you, grumpy people never schedule a complimentary call. They just don't, because they're like, that guy just drives me nuts. But Dream, Think, Do. I'll tell you what, I get to work with fun, successful people that are like, okay, I don't even fully understand it, but I'm in. Let's go. Let's have a conversation. So I always say good branding attracts the right and repels the wrong. So that's what, that's where it starts.
I love it. I was in CEO forum last week, and we were coaching one of the guys, kind of hot seat type thing. And he was doing so many different things. And so I wrote down on the feedback form, say no to grow. Say no so you can grow. And and he texted me or later that day, he's like, say no to grow. Like, that's good. You should write a book. I'm like, just don't you do it. You say no.
Yeah, exactly. Go to GoDaddy today and see if that domain is available, because that is gold, right?
But
if you don't and it's still available, I'm going to buy it, and you can buy it from me for $10,000, right?
Yeah, there you go.
But if you think about like the self-filtering, so we have the exact same thing here as selling from the heart. Like, dirtbags don't listen to selling from the heart.
No way. Manipulators don't listen to a podcast called Selling from the Heart, right? But people that are committed, absolutely. Yes. They're like, these are my people. Yep, that's exactly right. That's the filtering.
So let's think about that in the context of a sales professional.
Yeah.
A sales professional that wants to filter. What advice would you give to our friends who are listening in along this line?
Absolutely. So one of the things when we're talking about sales professionals, I know that your listeners are people that are committed to giving their customers a great experience, to building relationship, building trust. And one of the things you could do that is how are you going to show up? In the day and age that we live, one of the ways that you can do that is showing up on social media, right? Showing up on LinkedIn, on Facebook, putting out value. And I'm not talking about being a Kardashian. Nothing wrong with being Kardashians. But I'm not talking about, being on social media 24/7. But what's something you're putting out on a regular basis, on a consistent basis, that provides value, that actually helps your clients and customers, not in some vanilla generic way, but in ways where they can read it and go, oh my gosh, you just described something I was dealing with this morning, or this was something I was wrestling with last week. Where are you putting out value that helps those folks to know not only that you've got good stuff, but more importantly, you're there to help? So I always say, for anyone in any field, there are ways to put out content that help to build that value, help to build that connection, and start the filtering process. Then one of the other ways is, depending on your business, depending on your industry, it's how are you showing up face to face? How are you showing up in your interactions? I know before I had my own training company, I was in the pharmaceutical industry for a long time, and I will stop and say that while I was there, my boys, one of our sons was in kindergarten, and the kindergarten teacher called and said, "Hey, Mr. Matthews, you got to talk to Ben about how he describes what you do." And I said, "Why is that?" And she said, "Well, we were asking the kids, what do mom and dad do?" And Ben said, "My dad sells drugs out of the trunk of his car," which was accurate. I did share with the teacher that's actually accurate. But we did talk to him about it. But then I got into training and all these kinds of things. But one of the things is how you're going to show up. And in the pharmaceutical industry, is like so many other industries, you have to show up. You have to build relationship. Oftentimes you're getting doors closed in your face. You're getting shut down by things that are outside your control. And what you would start to see is a lot of people kind of walking around, as kind of as sales zombies. They're just like another day, another dollar, another door slammed to my face. But to be able to say, hey, how are you going to invest in yourself? How are you going to stay energized? How are you going to show up so that person on the other side of the desk, on the other side of the phone, realizes, wow, you're kind of on fire. You're excited. You're here. You're going to actually change the room, maybe by the information that you share, maybe by the value that you bring, maybe by the product that you've got in that bag. But how are you going to show up in a way that makes them say, hey, I want to engage with this person? And that can also help to filter.
Hey, I am so glad we are talking about this, because how you show up is just near and dear to me, Mitch, because I think whether you're a sales professional, sales leader, an executive of a company, you're responsible for this. You're 100% responsible for how you show up. And I like that we're having this conversation around filtering, because I think it goes even deeper than that. I think of congruency, and I think of, you got to pay attention to how you show up online. You got to pay attention to how you show up face to face. You got to pay attention to how you show up using the phone. You got to pay attention to how you show up leveraging email. It's not just one thing now that people are running that filtering process through.
That's exactly right. And it's interesting, especially on the social media front, because, we do coach people on becoming coaches and speakers. And a lot of folks that we work with are actually executives and successful leaders that are wanting to add coaching and speaking, as a side business, something that they could, build and build their legacy, create additional income, all of those things. So we show them how to do that. But one of the things that's often, that comes up is to say, hey, how do I do this social media thing? Do I need to keep or, create a separate social media account if I'm going to be a speaker and a coach? Do I need to have a separate social media account just for that? And I think this is true of any salesperson at all, to say, you know what? There are no separate accounts anymore. There are no separate profiles. Your profile is your profile. And I was talking with an executive who is wildly successful, incredibly charismatic, an amazing communicator. But I follow her on social because, I'm coaching her on these kinds of things. And she put out a wildly political post And it was obvious. It was in the heat of the moment. It was definitely at a very hot topic where a lot of people had opinions. She obviously had a very strong opinion. And I reached out to her and I said, hey, I love you. I never talk about politics, so I'm not going to tell you which side of the aisle I'm sitting on. I am not offering this feedback because I differ in your opinion. But I got to tell you, you are at risk of losing half the people that could potentially work with you and hire you just by your post right there. And I said, I want to encourage you, have those conversations over coffee, have those conversations over beer. But my encouragement to you is to take that thing down and on social, bring value, build bridges, connect with people, build trust, and keep those kinds of, hot and potentially divisive conversations offline. Because one, how often has one of those political posts ever moved anyone to believe something different anyway? But it said, more importantly, you're shutting out a possible connection of 50% of the people that you could connect with. And she was like, I didn't even think about that, because I think she was thinking, well, this is my personal account. And I said, the personal versus business, that doesn't exist anymore. People can Google you, they find you, whichever profile it is, that's who they see. So, I think that's a part of the filtering as well, because this filtering thing can work for you and it could definitely work against you. So that's why we talk about it a lot.
Yeah, that's good. That's really great insight. Filtering's the first step. Mitch, what do we do next?
Coaching. So, and now you might think I'm a little biased because I've been a coach since 2002, full-time coach since 2002. And I've pretty much always been a coach my whole life. You guys, I can tell, are natural coaches as well. And I know for me, when I was in college, my friends called me the pastor, not because of my good moral decisions, but it's just everybody came to me to confess stuff. So I've kind of always been a coach. But I love to take a coaching approach when I'm selling. And with that being said, I always believe that with coaching starts with listening. Coaching, works by meeting someone right where they're at, drawing out what they actually want, what they actually need, and then helping them to find that solution. And so I always believe in a coaching approach to say, as I move into possible, as an example, working with, a potential client that might hire me as an executive coach or a success coach, what I want to do is, I always check my heart before any one of those calls saying, hey, my intention is to get them the right solution. And if that's me, great. If that's not, I'm committed to helping them find that right solution. And I will tell them that in the first 2 to 3 minutes of the call, I will say, I actually have a sales call right after this interview. And in the first 3 minutes, I'm going to commit to that person. Hey, I'm committed to help you find the right solution. And if that's me, great. If it's not, no problem. I said, but what I'd love to do is I'd love to then move into a part of a conversation where I just coach you and we talk about what it is you want to do. What do you want to achieve? What do you want to experience? All those things. And then we can, if it does match up what I offer and what you want, if those things match up, I'll be the first one to tell you. But if they don't, I'm going to probably have a long resource sheet that I can point you to of other tools, other people, other, products and services. And it's amazing how that it breaks down walls and builds trust, especially when I commit to doing it and actually see it happen. And so that the coaching part then is to truly get into, what are they saying? What do they want? I love, Neil Rackman's spin selling, drawing out the need, but it's also staying with that coaching hat a little bit of really coaching out the best of what they want. And I think as people experience that, it does feel different, and it builds trust, it builds connection, it builds credibility, and often leads to a sale if you have the right solution for them.
Hey, I really like this. And I'm listening to all this. I'm going, hey, this is part of this whole filtering process. And I just want people to follow along. This is how my brain's working on listening to what you're saying, Mitch.
I love it. Yeah.
If you want to get pushed to the front of the line in a conversation, as they filter out what they're going to pay attention to and not pay attention to is that sales professional, or if that sales leader happens to be with that person on that call, is how they show up with this coaching mentality and coaching conversation, which means they got to change their whole thought process on their approach to who they're having this conversation with, if I'm buying what you're throwing down.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's really interesting because it is a big part of this is also setting the expectation. And I always say, like, if you can go in and say, hey, my heart is, and I will tell people this all the time, like, I quit a bad fit job in the pharmaceutical world to, launch my own business, have my own business. So I tell people all the time, like, I only want to work with the right people because I never want to sell something to someone that's not a good fit because I left a bad fit job. I don't want to create a bad fit job. And a bad fit job would be, doing work that I don't want to do with people that are a bad fit for that thing. Right. So I'll tell people all the time, like it is true win-win for us to find you the right solution. And if that's with me, great. If that's not, no problem. And again, people are kind of surprised when you'll say, hey, I'm just as committed to point you to somebody else as I am myself. It really, people are like, what? But then to say, hey, I want to coach you. I want to just talk through what it is you really want. What is it that you really need? What are you dealing with? And then I'll say, we'll talk about it. If I've got a half-hour call scheduled with them or an hour call scheduled with them, I will say, if you're okay with that, I'd like to reserve, what we offer to the end of this call, because I'm not even going to present you what we offer if I don't think we have a good fit for you. So I want to find out more about what you really want. And then if I think we've got a good fit, we can talk about that all day long towards the end of the call. But I will ask for your permission before we go there. And I said, I'll be able to tell you why I'd like to go there at that point. And people will be like, oh my gosh, yes, right? And it's funny because I do work with a lot of executives that, are launching coaching and speaking businesses. And one of the things that they confess is they've wanted to do this for a long time, but it's the sales portion that always scares them because they don't want to be seen as that guy, right? They don't want to be pushy. They don't want to be the sales guy. And I'm like, well, you're in luck, right? Because I truly believe the best approach, again, is right people, right solution, right time. And you'll both know that. And it makes all the difference.
I love the coaching framework. We've stood in front of many groups of sales leaders and said, I know your business card says sales manager, but at the end of this, at some point, we'd like everyone to think of you as the district sales coach, not the district sales manager, which I think is, we know from our data at Sales Index that coaching is absolutely the number one driver of success in organizations. It's data backed and validated. But I think the interesting twist on this that I see today is we have sales professional, sales rep, account executive, all of that. Like, what if you could start to look at yourself as the sales coach or the account coach of really helping coach people towards the outcomes they want to achieve rather than the sales person? Are we going to sell? Yeah, absolutely. We're going to sell way more in that process, but it's a mind shift to go, okay, I'm going to, as our guest said last week, it's not a mindset, it's a mind flex. We're going to start using that.
I like that.
That's selling from there. It's a mind flex to go, okay, well, actually, my role, if I can coach this person to get the outcome they want, this is going to be the win-win for all of us.
Absolutely true. And it's interesting too, that this really crosses industries. But it's a mind flex because, oftentimes a salesperson might feel pressured to hit their numbers. They might feel pressured to, be able to deliver the sale. And I totally understand that. I've lived in that world as well. But with the mind flex that we're talking about, it is interesting. This is definitely a longer game approach, but when you do this, you create customers and clients for life. I still have relationships with doctors that I served more than 20 years ago in the pharmaceutical world, just because of the relationships we built. And I was still in an era where we couldn't wine and dine and send people on trips and all of that. It was legitimately from relationships and trust. And I would just get in there and talk with them about, hey, this is the product that I've got, but what are your goals? And I would know a lot of my doctors' like life goals. I would know a lot of my doctors, goals for their office, for their practice, and to be able to, kind of find ways where what I could do, maybe ways that I could bring value, or just help and encourage, all of those things. It can make a difference, and they can see that. And that set me apart, especially in a world, with pharmaceutical sales is one of those where it starts to feel like a commodity in a lot of the different industries and a lot of the different, types of drugs and products and things like that. And if you're ever in danger of being considered a commodity, this is truly one of those ways to stand out and set yourself apart, and also have a lot more job satisfaction.
No doubt.
Hey, I got to just real quick, I got to touch on this commodity thing, because most people, they won't believe this. Y'all are in the commodity business anyway. I mean, someone's going to come out with something bigger, better, faster, at a more cost-effective, insert whatever you want to attach price to. This is how you get out of that zone that everyone's lumping salespeople and sales leaders in. Whether you all want to believe us or not, is these people are running through this filter process. Oh, they're just another commodity, right?
Yep.
So they treat everyone all the same way because most people are carrying themselves the same way.
That's exactly right. And it's that thing of what are you delivering? We talked about it earlier as a filtering mechanism. Where are you bringing value that makes you stand out? Right. It's even interesting. I was coaching one of my executives, coaching a CEO this week, and he had used AI, right, to do a little bit of, like, he had AI because he'd seen this function where the AI could ask him some coaching questions, and it was kind of doing my job, right? And he was like, "Hey, look at these questions it asked me," right? Like, and in some ways, I could have felt at risk of being a commodity. And I said, "Okay, those are good questions. How'd you do?" And he said, "Well, it really made me think." And I said, "Okay, that's fantastic. What did you do?" And he's like, "Well, I thought." And I said, No. That's not what I asked. What did you do? And he's like, "I did nothing." And I was like, "Yep, that's the relationship part." And he's like, "Exactly." And I think that's one of those things of being able to say, how do you want to set yourself apart, right? How do you want to build? What's your part to set yourself apart?
Well, and I think that's a great way to wrap this conversation, because really anybody can go and do research and find. We need people to coach us to take action. And this is, if there's one, if you want to boil the role of a sales professional down to one thing, it's helping people take action.
Yep.
And until action happens, nothing happens,
Exactly.
right? And
Exactly.
I think that's where we are living in the world today, is overwhelmed with information. And even, as AI synthesizes it for us, it just opens up more confusion, and we can get clarity and help people take action. Beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Coaching's all about questions. I love that too. I know one question is burning on the hearts of everyone listening in. That is, how do I get more Mitch Matthews in my life?
I love that. Thank you so much. So you can go to mitchmatthews.com. We spent our whole marketing budget coming up with that domain name.
Brilliant.
So mitchmatthews.com, it's a good place to start. There's a number of free resources and tools. We did just do some training that I think your folks would love. And it's all about making time for your next chapter. Because a lot of executives, a lot of leaders, a lot of great salespeople are thinking, like, what's my next chapter? But do I even have time for that? So you can go to mitchmatthews.com/time. It's a $97 course, but you can use the coupon code LOVE for your people. They'll use the coupon code LOVE and get it for free. So
wonderful.
It's a powerful thing, and I think your folks will love it.
Beautiful.
Mitch, thank you so much for investing in us today, sharing your heart with us. It's been amazing.
You guys, it's a gift. It's an honor. And I love what you guys are doing. Keep up the great work.
Love
Awesome.
it.
Thank
Love
you.
it. What a great conversation. And what if we thought of ourselves more as sales coaches rather than sales representatives or whatever fancy title is on your card, helping people take action. Coaches ask great questions. They surface things and then they help people take action. What would it look like, Larry, if we just said, hey, we're coaching you to get the outcome that you wanted to achieve?
Hey, I just thought of this, Darrell. Just think about how salespeople and sales leaders, they're so attached to titles. I don't know why they're so attached to titles. Immediately, just think of the filtering thing. Mitch talked about it, in our time together. You hand somebody a business card and they look at it, automatically, they've just filtered you in or out.
That's right. Absolutely.
Think about that.
Well, what a great conversation today. A special thank you to everybody who is leaving reviews on this podcast. It helps us reach more people. And we're building this community of sales professionals that believe in selling from the heart. It's allowing us to go get even all kinds of amazing guests. We got great stuff coming up. So would you do us a favor? Would you leave a review on the platform on which you listen? Larry, so much good stuff ahead. I almost wish it's next week. Like, let's go.
No, it's all good. Part of our filtering process, Mitch, we love you, is to find fresh voices, new ideas, new insights, all to challenge y'all just to become better at the craft of sales that we all love.
All right. Well, thank you for leaving a review. Until next time, keep being genuine, keep being authentic, keep building trust, coach your clients and prospects, and most of all,
sell from the heart.